What's cracking? This is Steve from Anaheim, Jeffrey Street Gang, out of Tijuanita, Orange County. I'm in California State Prison, about to finish up my term right. Check it out. I'm bald-headed, gang affiliated, been stated, Anaheim's most hated. It's crazy, ain't it? Don't know how the fuck I made it. I guess the next thing to do is look back and narrate it. Without a guess, it's day one. Ask my mom and dad. At times I purposely would look for ways to get them mad. Been called a lot of things, or rebels, what I mostly am. When I was born, I heard I pissed on the doctor's hand. I'm just playing, but it'd be crazy if I did though, huh? Cause everything would fall in place, nothing would be my fault. Thought up all kinds of excuses and used them all to get the world off my case, but they still edging on. I've been a thief since way back as a young gun. I cruise around the store stealing shit like bubble gum. I started robbing passion on the side, I sold drugs. My father caught me, beat my ass, now I'm on the run. I had to eat, so I just did what needed to be done. The problem was I never knew when enough was. Had it rough, but never want that pity shit. I had a girl too, fucked off that relationship. Left me cause I wouldn't change, so I don't blame the bitch. Gave me another shot, but did the same shit. Another broken heart, tally up and ride a butt. My parents disappointed cause they're all the sons of crud. They're trying to figure out where it was they went wrong. I keep on telling them that it was not at all their fault. Gave me everything a child could ever need or want. But I was right up in the streets and heard the J's call. Wouldn't come home cause I was with the homies running mucks. Hit get late, the homies leave, but I'm still posted up. And that's the love I got from my hood, in it deep. I give my life to the shit, it don't belong to me. In and out of jail, from burglaries to robberies. I'm gonna parole out of prison, back on the streets. But luckily I've always had a date to get home. Call me slick, call me quick, or a blessed soul. I know I'll probably maxed out on my luck and go. Will I forever get away? God, I hope so. Shout out to all my active ass J's out in the streets. To the homies doing life, to the homies rest in peace. J's up.
How's it going, everybody? This is Soul Town Productions bringing you some more content from the heart of Orange County, from one lost soul to another. Greetings. Today we're going to be talking about a very dangerous and infamous gang found within the city of Anaheim called Jeffrey Street Gang. So this Varrio, before I continue, I want to say much respect to this neighborhood. I don't mean no disrespect. I'm just trying to enlighten some of the people of the world about your Varrio and how dangerous it is. And before I continue too, I want to say please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. It's very appreciated. I'm going to be bringing more content. Right now I'm working on a Santa Ana documentary. It's not going to be released anytime soon. I want to make sure it's looking right. And so let's get to it, right? So the gang is called Jeffrey Street, but there no longer is a street by that name. The neighborhood the gang claims, once known as Jeffrey Line, is now called Hermosa Village. On Saturday, neighborhood residents were treated to hot dogs and hamburgers to celebrate recent court injunction against the gang. The party at Energy Field was hosted by the Anaheim Police Department and the Orange County District Attorneys. Once one of Anaheim's most blighted high-crime neighborhoods, Jeffrey Line was transformed into Hermosa Village starting about 10 years ago as the city bought and renovated many of its two-story apartment buildings. It's way better than before, said Ariana Gutierrez, 15, a low-era high student who has lived in the neighborhood since she was 2. It doesn't look so ugly, she said. Crime began to drop when the city did the renovations. Police Sergeant Juan Reveles said many of the gang members have moved out, he said. However, they still gravitate toward the neighborhood because it's where they feel safe. Elsewhere, they're in no man's land or in enemy's gang territory. After the renovations, Jeffrey Street was renamed Calle del Sol. When it was removed, the Jeffrey Street sign had a couple of bullet holes in it. The injunction served on 60 of the gang's most active members in July. Gives the police an additional tool to use against the gang. It forbids 2 or more gang members to congregate inside a 1.59 square mile safety zone bounded by Catella Avenue to the south, Nutwood Street to the west, Ball Road to the north, and Disneyland Drive to the east. Also forbidden are wearing gang clothing and throwing hang signs. Gang members subject to the injunction can be arrested and prosecuted for these activities, which would otherwise be legal. In the first 2 months of the injunction, There were 9 such violations, but none in the third month, Rivera said. It's the second gang injunction in Anaheim and the 8th in Orange County. Others are in Santa Ana, Orange, Garden Grove, San Clemente, and San Juan Capistrano. The ban on congregating keeps members from posting up or hanging out in public to attract members of rival gangs who might be looking for a fight. Posting up creates dangers for gang members and non-members alike. What the layperson don't understand is that these people are willing to die for their neighborhood. Rogelio Franco, 35, used to live in Jeffrey Line in the mid-90s. He moved back a year ago to what is now Hermosa Village. There were a lot of gangs back in those years. Now it's different. It's like a new place. Violent crimes in the neighborhood is down 33% since the injunction was served. A deputy district attorney who prepared the injunction, Susan Eckerman. So it's like I said before, guys. The government's gonna hit these neighborhoods with injunctions. They're gonna hit these neighborhoods with RICO acts. Prosecuting all the members of the gang, right? And it does make it safe for some residents, but when they do gentrification, what ends up happening is that these apartments end up being so high cost that we're not able to afford them. So our people have to actually move out. And that's when you start seeing white people in the neighborhoods. That's when you start seeing Asians. No disrespect to them, but I'm just saying that you start seeing other races popping out in these neighborhoods, right? So it makes it's a win-win in a certain way, but in another way it pushes us out. Police swept through the troubled Jeffrey Line neighborhood at dawn Friday, arresting 9 suspected gang members in connection with 3 slayings and other attacks in the last 2 years. About 90 police officers from Anaheim, Fullerton, Placentia, and Orange, along with investigators from the Orange County District Attorney's Office and the County Probation Departments, spread through the neighborhood and elsewhere beginning at 7 a.m., raiding the homes of suspected Jeffrey Street gang members. 25 places were eventually searched in the neighborhood and in Orange, Stanton, Santa Ana, and Mission Viejo, where police say some Jeffrey Street members may now live. Officers said that in the raids they found evidence tying the suspects to a number of bloody drive-by and walk-up attacks in Anaheim. These date from the December 1991 shotgun death of a 16-year-old Armando Hurtado to the October 3rd fatal drive-by shooting of 19-year-old Teofilo Carlos. We want to get the message out that we will aggressively investigate all gang-related assaults and killings, said Sergeant Steve Rodriguez, head of the Anaheim's Robbery Homicide Unit. Evidence seized including several rifles, handguns, drawings depicting gang logos and nicknames, and photographs of members partying and flashing gang hand signs, police said. Arrested on charges of murder were Victor Flores, 20 years old, Javier Godinez, 18 years old, Manuel Quiñones, 19, and Carlos Rodriguez, 20 years old, all of Anaheim. Also arrested were Marcos Millones, 19, of Mission Viejo, and 3 Anaheim juveniles ages 16, 17, and 15, whose names were not released because of their ages. The adults are being held without bail in Anaheim jail. The juveniles were taken to Orange County Juvenile Hall. All are charged with the Teofilo Carlos shooting. Quiñones is also charged with the October 28, 1992 drive-by shooting death of 15-year-old Francisco Hernandez. Godinez is charged with Hurtado's death. One of the juveniles is charged with attempted murder for allegedly firing the bullets that wounded 2 Jeffrey Line boys, ages 4 and 7, who tried to hide as gang members exchanged gunshots with a carload of people from another city last July. These Jeffrey Street gang members are directly responsible for other gang members coming into this neighborhood and shooting innocent people. Maybe some of the people in the neighborhood will now start calling us and letting us know what the gang members are doing. Rodriguez said that raids were born of the department's investigation of Carlos' death and the critical wounding of his brother Joel Carlos, 20, as they stood on Olive Street. The inquiry uncovered evidence tying the suspects to the attack and several others, he said. One of the slayings police said they solved Friday may have triggered another gang's retaliatory strike into Jeffrey Line. October 16th, leaving an innocent 16-year-old resident El Civil Elizalde Arteaga der. But members of another Anaheim gang, the Optional Boys, were upset Friday by comments made by Anaheim Police Lieutenant Vince Howard that members of their gang may have been involved in the shooting. The comments were printed in an article that ran in Friday's Times Orange County edition. Jesse Arredondo, president of the nonprofit United Varrio Council, said she was flooded with phone calls from members of the Optional Boys saying they were being wrongly accused. Nobody knows who did this, said Arredondo, adding the tensions on the street are high that something as simple as a line in a newspaper could set off violence. If it was them, they wouldn't have bothered calling. Fernando Carlos, the brother of Teofilo Carlos, the 19-year-old killed 2 weeks ago in the Optional Boys neighborhood, called the Times on Friday to express sympathy for the Arteaga family, but he said the Optional Boys had nothing to do with the death. I've experienced what they've experienced, said Carlos, 25, who works as a ceramic tile salesman. I wouldn't want my worst enemy to go through that. But the day my brother passed away, he said, I asked our boys to respect me. Our family didn't want a payback. I don't see anything to be gained by killing another person. Police making the arrest Friday met no resistance. About five officers would knock on the front door while one or two others would guard the back windows. At one home, a suspect yawned loudly as an officer handcuffed and searched them. That's just a macho facade these guys put up. Sergeant Craig Hunter, head of Anaheim's gang detail, said pretty soon reality will set in. Nobody wants to go to jail. In that suspect's bedroom, which police searched for evidence, hung a group photograph and a City of Anaheim certificate dated September 14, honoring his completion of Devil Pups, a 10-day Marine Corps boot camp for teens at Camp Pendleton. At another home, a suspect's father told Anaheim Police Sergeant Harold Mittman that he works two jobs and attends night school and finds it hard to supervise his son. A lot of these families, the father, the mother, the sisters, are good people. They just can't control their sons, Mittman said. And that's pretty true, because I remember when I was in school, I was a big knucklehead because of the people I would hang around with in school, right? Me and my family, we came from Mexico in the in the late '98, and it was hard because my parents had actually grew up in Mexico, right? So their perception of reality was different to the perception of reality that I was being raised in. So when I was in school, there was gangs everywhere. Either you were from a gang or you were from a crew. If you weren't from none of that, then you were just a nerd or just a lame walking around, right? So it's interesting to say that times have changed, right? Today, you pass by one of these schools in Orange County, right? You don't really see kids looking like gang members, but then again, nowadays, the gang members don't even look like gang members most of the time. Most of the time nowadays, gang members look like these skinny jeans dudes that you can't even tell if they're gang members nowadays. And I believe that makes it more dangerous, because a kid that looks like an innocent kid could have a gun in his pocket or in one of those man purses that kids seem to carry nowadays, right? At around 9 p.m. one night in July 2004, NV, who was a victim, who had just completed 8th grade, was sitting on a bench after playing basketball at an Anaheim park when defendant and two Hispanic males wearing hoods approached him. NV got on his bicycle to leave, but defendant grabbed the handlebars. Defendant carried a little bag which MV thought might contain a weapon. Defendant asked MV where he was from. MV told him he lived in the neighborhood and was not in a gang. Defendant said Jeffrey, referring to a neighborhood gang. MV was scared because he believed defendant was in that gang and was going to jump him or pull a weapon on him. Accordingly, he complied when defendant told him to get off the bicycle. Defendant took the bicycle to the other two males, who were standing about 20 to 25 feet away. MV never recovered his bicycle. 2 months later, on September 13, defendant robbed 3 teenagers and attempted to rob a fourth in separate incidents. LS was walking on Cerritos Avenue when defendant approached him riding a bicycle and blocked his path. LS was afraid. Defendant asked LS where he was from. LS knew defendant was asking whether he was in a gang. LS told him he was not from Jeffrey. Defendant then asked for his gold chain. Defendant lifted up his shirt, revealing a knife. LS gave him the chain, and the defendant left on his bicycle. AJ was walking his bicycle on Cerritos Avenue with his friend. Defendant and another Hispanic male were across the street on bicycles. Defendant crossed over to AJ, blocked his path, and asked where he lived. When AJ asked why, defendant pulled AJ's sunglasses off his face. Defendant then lifted up his shirt and showed AJ a knife. AJ was scared, defendant said. Let's see what happens if you try to run and reach for AJ's watch. AJ pulled his arm away and rode off on his bicycle. Defendant was unsuccessful in catching him. AJ's friend was not paying attention and heard only part of their conversation, but he saw AJ race his bicycle down the middle of the street looking scared and nervous. He ran after him. As he did so, he saw a second person across the street watching and thought he yelled out, "Hey, El Niño." As RM walked home from school on Cerritos Avenue, defendant on a bicycle stopped in front of him, blocking his path. Defendant asked him where he was from. RM knew defendant was asking whether he was in a gang. He said he was from nowhere and didn't belong to any gang. He was scared. Defendant demanded money. When RM said he did not have any, defendant asked for his watch, but RM would not give it up. Defendant then lifted up his shirt, revealing a knife in his pants pocket, and said he would hurt him if he did not give it to him. RM gave him 20 and defendant left. Defendant also blocked EH's path with his bicycle. While defendant's male companion remained across the street, defendant asked EH where he was from because he lives in a gang neighborhood. EH knew what the question meant and was scared. He told defendant he was from nowhere. When asked if he lived in Hermosa Village, EH said no because he was afraid of what defendant would do to him if he said he did. Defendant asked him why his head was shaved, and EH said because it was hot. Both defendant and the other male lifted their shirts to reveal knives sticking out of their pants pockets, which frightened EH. A few minutes later, defendant let EH go and rode off on his bicycle. EH later told the police that defendant's possible nickname was El Niño. At trial, police investigators Juan Reveles, qualified as an expert in Anaheim street gangs. Reveles was familiar with the Jeffrey Street Gang, its history, territory, and crimes for the period between July and September 2004. The gang was named after a street located in a predominantly Hispanic area, Anaheim, known as Little Tijuana. As a result, the Jeffrey Street Gang was formerly known as Los Tijuanitas or Tijuanas. Current members still use the old names in graffiti and tattoos to show respect. The gang is also known as TJ and Tijuanitas. In Reveles' opinion, Jeffrey Street is a criminal street gang whose primary activity from July to September 2004 was felony vandalism, consisting of extensive graffiti with the gang names. According to Reveles, a hit-up is a challenge to someone from a gang member asking where the person is from. It is a form of intimidation and benefits the gang by showing a willingness to protect the gang's territory, promote the gang, and further the gang's reputation. It also creates fear in the community, which is the driving force for all criminal street gangs. From fear comes respect, as perceived by gang members. So a lot of the times, people cannot defend themselves against gangs, especially in the Hispanic areas, in the rasa areas, right? And that has to do a lot with the fact that a lot of our people do not have gun rights. They do not have the means to protect themselves. And if they did have the means to protect themselves, what would happen is, one, yeah, they'll protect themselves, but they'll get busted. They'll do time, maybe even do life for protecting their family, adding the gun charges, right? It's sad to say, right? But I believe that us, as the young people growing up, having parents that are immigrants that cannot defend themselves, we need to get the right to bear arms, right? We need our people, the young ones, the ones that, and I'm not talking about gang members. I'm not talking about gang members because we don't need gang members on the street. That's what we don't need. What we need is smart, talented young people growing up to protect your neighborhoods, protect your area, protect the kids that live in the area. You know, many times I see gang members trying to come into the area where I live in, and there's kids outside. My kids are outside, and I gotta scare them off sometimes. You know, I gotta show out and show myself so they could know that there's someone here watching, so they could know that there's someone out here observing and someone actually willing to protect the people in my circle, right? And it's interesting how most of the time gang members they victimize their own communities. You know, they victimize the people in their neighborhoods, not realizing that we're only hurting our people. We're only making things worse for our gente, for the people that we love. You know, if shit hit the fan, we're gonna need our people to defend each other, right? We're gonna need our people to protect, right? The violence in Anaheim has now entered its fifth day, finally reaching television screens and airwaves around the country late night. But contrary on the emerging storyline, the unrest did not begin with last weekend's fatal shooting of the two suspected gang members in separate incidents. As the Weekly's Amber Stephens reported last month, a string of officers involved shootings earlier this year had already set the stage for the current conflagration. To truly understand the tension how boiling over between the city's cops and Latino residents, however, you have to go even further back than that, and to a neighborhood, Jeffrey Line, that doesn't exist no more. Until it was redeveloped into a less dense neighborhood called Hermosa Village. A decade ago, Jeffrey Line was the gang-infested front line of the conflict between the city's cops and low-income Latino residents. Named for two intersecting streets as the heart of the working class community, in question, it was there in the early 1990s that a gang unit officer named Steve Nolan grew weary of the routine brutality he witnessed against Latino youth at the hands of fellow cops, punching handcuffed suspects in police cars, bashing them on the head with flashlights after foot chases. He filed a 1995 whistleblower lawsuit against the city and 2 years later won a generous jury reward. Jeffrey Line is also where another police officer, Harold Martin, cut his teeth as a patrolman and grew frustrated in a different way than Nolan. He decided that all of Anaheim's woes involved illegal immigrants. For years, Martin did his best to worsen the tensions between the city's cops and citizens by agitating for the right of officers to stop and question anyone who looked illegal. Eventually taking credit for getting the INS to begin operating in Anaheim City Jail in 2002, Martin ended up being fired for insubordination for remarks he made about his superiors, but continued to do damage as a school board member until losing the job too. And for those that don't know, right, I also want to say this. If you get busted in Anaheim, if you get sent to Theo Lacey, and you're an illegal immigrant, you're gonna get deported. You're gonna get deported because Theo Lacey lets immigration know of every immigrant that gets busted. They release the information, they release your address, they release where they can find you, they release they release everything to immigration because they want immigration to deport you. Anaheim is not a city for the people, not like Santa Ana. You know how Santa Ana is a sanctuary city. Anaheim is not that. Anaheim will deport you quick. During the several years I spent covering the Jeffrey Line neighborhood, I often interviewed community activists like Josie Montoya, who passed away in March 2002, of the activist group Barrios Unidos, and members of Los Amigos of Orange County, which was made up of mostly middle-class, cop-friendly Democrats. One of the weirdest stories I ever wrote was about the fact that police who claimed to be working with activists to heal the ongoing tension were actually spying on the two groups, often using my own articles as starting points for criminal background checks of citizens. This only became public because a few well-intentioned cops at the department found the snooping operation stupid and distasteful. It's been 10 years since the shameful episode, and since city officials, who, as I reported in a July 22, 1999 article, ironically titled Inside Revolutionary Anaheim, first ignored and then worked with affected residents. Sorry about that. Bulldozed Jeffrey Line. But as this week's events reveal, you can erase a community's name and pave over the past, yet bad blood lingers on. This article is written by Nick Shaw, award-winning investigative journalist, is editor of OC Register. So as you can see, man, I mean this neighborhood is very notorious. It's very dangerous. Has a history. Has a past. They took their gang away, their territory, but they're still there. They took the street name, but they're still there, right? Approximately 3 a.m. on July 19, 1992, two gunmen approached an outdoor party of the Jeffrey Street gang in an alley in Anaheim and shot Vicente Garcia. One bullet hit Garcia in the left arm, another hit his right testicle and lodged in his thigh. Among those present during the shooting were Hugo Guzman, a Jeffrey Street gang member, Oscar Gomez, who considered Jeffrey Street members to be his homeboys, and Carlos Rodriguez, a friend of Jeffrey Street's members, but not a member himself. After Garcia was shot, Rodriguez drove him to the hospital. Doctors removed Garcia's injured testicle. Immediately after the shooting, Guzman, and others left in Gomez's car. As they drove off, a passenger in the car was hit by a thrown bottle. Gomez drove his injured passenger to a hospital. There he discovered two fresh bullet holes in his car. Anaheim police officer John Orr happened to be at the hospital and separately interviewed Gomez, Guzman, and Gomez's passengers. Gomez told Officer Orr that two gunmen had walked up to the party and started shooting. Gomez gave a physical description of the two gunmen, one of whom he described as a male Hispanic, age 25 with a heavy build, 5 feet 7 inches tall, wearing a white and blue striped shirt, and with a thick mustache and short dark hair. Gomez went outside to show Officer Orr the bullet holes in his car. Once outside and away from his friends, Gomez whispered to Officer Orr that the shooter was a Westside Anaheim gang member known as Beto, and that he could identify Beto if he saw Beto again. When Officer Orr interviewed Guzman at the hospital, Guzman described the gunman as a male Hispanic, age 25, with a heavy build, wearing a light-colored long-sleeve shirt, and having medium-length, slick-back hair and a mustache. Guzman's description was consistent with the one given by Gomez. Later, Officer John Kelly interviewed Guzman. At first, Guzman denied being present during the shooting. When the officer reminded Guzman of Guzman's earlier statement to Officer Orr at the hospital, Guzman replied he could not remember the shooting. Officer Kelly also interviewed Gomez 3 days after Garcia was shot. In this interview, Gomez reiterated and explained his identification of Beto. Gomez told Officer Kelly that Beto was the shooter. Gomez described Beto's physical appearance as Hispanic, 25 years old, 5 feet 7 inches tall, weighing 175 to 190 pounds. With a bushy mustache and a dark medium-length hair that was combed straight back, and wearing a white long-sleeve shirt with blue stripes. Gomez said he became acquainted with Beto through a former girlfriend. When Officer Kelly showed Gomez a notebook containing 30 to 40 photographs of Westside Anaheim gang members, Gomez selected defendant Robert Munoz Cuevas' pictures as the one depicting Beto. Later, while being interviewed by a defense investigator, Gomez repudiated his earlier identification of defendant as the shooter, claiming it had been motivated by anger at the Westside Anaheim gang for providing evidence against Guzman's brother, who was charged with murder in an unrelated case. Defendant was arrested and charged with attempted murders of Garcia and Gomez and with assault with a firearm of Garcia and Gomez. Defendant was also charged with personally using a firearm in committing these crimes and with intentionally inflicting great bodily injury on Garcia. Both Gomez and Guzman testified at defendant's trial. Gomez recanted his identification of defendant as the gunman. Gomez acknowledged that he knew Beto that he was previously acquainted with defendant through his former girlfriend. That in his 2 statements to the officer, he had identified defendant as the shooter. So it's dangerous out here in Anaheim. Jeffrey Street is nothing to play with. And once again, like I said, no disrespect, I'm just talking about your neighborhood with public knowledge, things that people can find online. Please like, comment, and share, subscribe to my channel. Uh, with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Please have a safe and happy night. Al ratos.